Welcome back to episode 15 of the RBNY UK podcast in partnership with Big Apple Sports Network, bringing you all the latest news and views from the tri-state area, from the Mets to the Nets, from the Knicks to the Giants. We have it all covered with podcasts and video content coming very shortly. And who else to introduce but the man himself, Luke Hume. How are you, Luke?
All right, I'm very tired. Another week in London, town commuting. So I'm ready. I'm looking forward to waking up at 8:30 tomorrow till 6:30 for the meeting. It was been a good week. I can't complain.
That's what we love to hear. And obviously, because we've had no games to look back on since our last podcast, it's going to be a shorter edition today and with a new segment at the end. But we might as well get this ball on the pitch, not like the game at the weekend. Well, it did, but it didn't move much. So, Luke, it's your favourite time of the podcast, and I'm going to give you permission to say it for the first time in a while.
Well, the intro.
Welcome to the RBNY UK podcast.
Thank you very much, Luke. And yes, just like the ball on that lovely, wet, thundery evening, the game just didn't happen. Obviously, the game could have been called a lot earlier. It was obviously thunder and lightning in the area. Lightning struck and then struck and struck and struck. And then by the the fans were in the seats, the players were on the pitch, and the ball couldn't move because it was soaking wet.
Who would have thought
it? Not the first time this season. That's the thing. It's the second time. Obviously, the first time it was because of lightning. Second time it was actually in the end because of water on the pitch. But it was a derby game, which everyone was looking forward to. And, oh, well, it didn't happen. So there's no point reflecting too much on that. It's going to be replayed. And once we have the date, we'll bring it straight to you. But, well, might as well look forward to this weekend now. And I thought, let me check the weather forecast. Because I thought, oh, yeah, that'd be lovely. I see the sun on the forecast. I was thinking, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to be able to watch Red Bulls. And then I looked at a certain kickoff time, and then there's a 70% chance of thunderstorms. And hopefully they blow off and go somewhere completely else, because I'm not having another game postponed due to lightning. It's frustrating, ain't it? But I have to say, the last thing I'm going to touch on the NYCFC game, the South Wall are great in the rain. I don't know if you see any of the footage from that.
Yeah, I did see it. It was amazing.
It was one of them. I was sitting in my front room early in the morning thinking, I wouldn't mind getting absolutely soaking wet, having a good time there, but it wasn't to be. But obviously looking forward to the Chicago Fire home game this Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, or for us, actually on the same day. It's 11 p.m. kickoff for us. However, sadly for the UK audience, there is no TV coverage, which means Premier Sports, Free Sports, and Sky Sports have not taken up the option of showing Red Bulls at 11 o'clock, which is very frustrating. Obviously, there is other ways to watch it, and I will be saying it on our Twitter, but obviously I won't be saying it on here once we have confirmation that it's not live on telly, which is a big shame. But we've had a week off now. We've had a full week to try and recover, get some more energy in the legs. Maybe some players are a bit tired, so this could actually play into our own hands having this time off. I don't know if you think, Luke, this actually could be a blessing in disguise, having a game called off and having a bit more rest time.
I don't think the derby game is the best place for us anyway in such an important sequence. Like, it's vital we get wins now, and derbies, when you play a derby match, everything goes out the window. I don't think it was a great place derby for us. We needed to win games. I think it could be better for us. You go to Chicago, who they're about the same sort of place as us, like about the same sort of level, and go and get a win. That's go Red Bull Arena, get a win, weather permitting, of course.
Oh, 100%, and big weather like dependent. Like I see some of the footage coming out of America, and I'm just hoping it's not the game because we've got a point where we need to play these games. That we had a 4-game homestand that we was all looking forward to. Obviously, started with Columbus and ends with DC. All right, one of them's now postponed and will be rearranged most likely in October. I've been reading, but I don't know how true that is. But we're now looking at we're playing Chicago Fire, a massive game, absolute ginormous game, and then obviously we welcome DC on September the 11th, which seems a million miles away, but we actually are near the end of August already, which is absolutely flown by this season. And obviously, international break will be a bit of a disruptance on the season, but we're not going to have the abundance of players traveling around the world, which is quite good. We're going to have most of them staying home in New Jersey and New York, which is going to be good for us. But just going into detail about this Fire game, and when we're looking for this homestand, we did originally say we was looking at Columbus game, must win, had to win it. But then we were saying with the NYCFC game that wasn't the biggest must-win game. Obviously, you want to always beat your rivals, but in terms of the actual table, not as important as the Crew and then obviously a DC game. So moving into the Crew game, I don't know how you're looking at the game. How do you think we're going to face off against Chicago? Do you think there'd be any, I'm going to say the dreaded words, team rotation, because who knows what's going to happen, but what do you think we're going to set up, a 5 at the back or a 4 at the back?
Hopefully not 5 at the back. I don't seem to play well 5 at the back, so hopefully not 5 at the back. I'd like to see Tom Edwards at right back, and then we got Sean Neal's back. He can start to know we can see Tom Edwards at right back. I would drop Duncan to the bench. I don't think he has a great season. I think he's halfway at the door by now, to be honest. I think he's going to be in Europe this time next year, so that's not a lot good. I'd like to possibly see something like maybe some changes in midfield. Maybe it's tricky in such a big game, but Caden Clark hasn't exactly been living it up since he came back from injury. Maybe bring him up from the bench. Maybe make the start that way, gets freshen up a bit. But we haven't played a game for a while now, so I think it would be quite likely we go see the same team we would have seen at Red Bull Arena on Saturday.
No, yeah, definitely agree with you there. And I think, like, from my perspective, that obviously you're looking at would he go back 5, back 4 option. I think another main talking points will Gutman was at left back, or Tolkien slot back in at left back, or he stay in midfield. There's quite a lot of talking points ahead of the game where they're not as much sometimes about tactics, but like you said, Will Edwards dropped back into a right back spot, which very likely with giving Duncan a rest because he's played a load of time as well. But looking at up front, and I think with Fabian Kamara, I would say you can near enough guarantee that both of them will be starting the match. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Because the lack of options in the team. So you're looking at, right, definitely Carlos Coronel in goal, I would say. Then this is from my perspective, I'd play a 4. I would play a 4 with Tom Edwards at right back, and I'd have Gutman at left back. But I would actually in the middle, I'd have just off the back of his new 3-year deal with an option of a year, Sean Neal's, which I was very happy to see him sign. And for a local boy, great to see. And been solid player in the team that people had question marks going into this season, Luke.
Definitely. Oh yeah, definitely. I was one of his biggest, I won't say a critic, but I wasn't when the season started and we were going into the season with Aaron Long and Sean Neal's. I was very concerned. I thought, I don't know about this kid. I don't think he's good enough, and he's proved that's all wrong. He has an amazing season, being our best defender this season. Obviously, he recovered really well. We lost one of the best MLS defenders in Aaron Long, and he's managed to shape some sort of defence. It's not been easy with all the injuries we've had, and very well deserves his multi-year contract essentially he signed at Red Bull. Like I said before, he's a Long Island native. He knows the club, been a couple of years, been through the twos, and he's in the first team. I mean, it's more and more proof that this system does work. Like, I mean, a lot of thoughts lately. What does this system work? Do we need to move? It does work if we get the right players in.
No, yeah, 100% do agree with you there. And obviously, they're playing alongside him. We've got the option of obviously Andres Reyes or Amro Tarek, but obviously Reyes is coming back off injury. But I've some people might not like me saying this, but I actually think Amro Tarek's been playing quite well of late. I quite liked his performances, and I probably will think we'll see him starting the weekend. And then I'm going to go with Gutman at left back, not because I don't like John Tolkien. It's just because I think John Tolkien's going to start in midfield alongside Sean Davis, or like in more of a left-handed. Like he's quite versatile in that midfield where he can play in the centre and drop to the left, or vice. I can't even speak. Not alone stay formation, but no, I think it'll be Sean Davis, John Tolkien, and then obviously there is a question here with the more attacking players in the team, who they will go with. But obviously, I've got a feeling. He hasn't had the best couple of games, but Wilcome Carmona has been exceptional this season so far for me, and I think he will continue in the 11. Then we're looking at Caden Clark, for example. I think, obviously, he looked like he was out on his feet a bit since his injury, but not having a game since the Crew game, I personally do believe that Caden Clark will be starting this weekend against their Fire. So I think it'll be a Carmona and Clark attacking 2. And then, like we said before, Fabio and Klimala up top. Obviously, there could be a few changes. Like I wouldn't be over surprised if I see Frankie Amaya, for example, or a Caceres Jr., one of them two in the midfield, or even John Tolkien at left back, and then someone else drops into midfield. There's quite a lot that can down, or even Duncan starting at right back and Edwards playing in the midfield, or a back 5. You know what I mean? It's quite an open game this weekend in terms of what formation can be played and what clientele will put out. But obviously, just touching on this weekend's game, it is the autism awareness match, which is another exceptional thing that the MLS do in having different matches.
I don't know if it's MLS. I think it might get Big Red Bull.
No, but I'm saying like it's a theme that MLS do. I think it's a thing that something around the world could actually learn, to be honest. It's a very good thing having different charities associated during the season and having different fundraisers. So, for example, if we look at what personally I've been reading up about, and I know quite a lot of Red Bull fans have covered, is they're auctioning off training jerseys that were worn by the players on the 27th of July. And these auctions have already started. All the players are up on the website. If you go on the Red Bull website, there will be a link on there to the auctions, but they do expire at the 30th of August at 2 p.m. Eastern time, which is 7 p.m. British summertime. And 92% of all proceeds go to Autism Speaks, which is no doubt anyone would disagree. It's a fabulous organisation and do absolute wonders. And it's a brilliant organisation to have attached from it. And I think no doubt there's going to be quite a few people that will have an eye on a few of the training jerseys. I was just flicking through it now, and I'm not giving away who I'm looking at because I'm not starting a bidding war. I quite fancy a couple of jerseys. And I think just another one for people to keep in mind is that if you do want to bid on one of these jerseys, there will be an option for no additional charge to get the player to autograph the training jersey, which is quite a nice touch. And there will be a 2 to 3 week delay on sending out if you do pick this option, just because of COVID guidelines. But just touching back on obviously this autism awareness match against the Fire, are you going into the game confident, Luke, or a bit pessimistic?
I like to think I'm most of the time optimistic. I fancy to get a result against the Fire, especially at Red Bull Arena. If it was at Chicago, we don't normally play well in Chicago. We've got a truly bad record in Chicago. But Chicago, I'm always confident Chicago come here. We had the excellent match. We won the Shield against them in 2013, which is one of the best matches ever against Chicago. So we will get a result. I'm confident. I'm not saying a win, but I think we get a result.
So if I say score prediction, you're going to go along the 1 point route?
No, I will go. I will back the boys and go 2-1 Red Bulls.
Nice to hear. No, I'm actually going to agree with you for a change. I think the 2 week break is going to do a wonder good for the players. Struber as well, being able to get a bit more tactics on the training ground as well. Obviously, they've trained fully hard for the NYCFC game last week, but they also have had a bit more time to re-energize after not playing. But I'm going to go 2-0 Red Bull win, and I'm going to go for. I'm actually going to say it. I don't know why, but I've just had a vision in my head of Sean Davis scoring. Don't know why, just come to me, which would be lovely to see. And I actually think Fabio's going to get on the score sheet this week. I'm just hoping that I am right, and I'm not dreaming. Potentially could be, but it's going to be an interesting game. And like always, we always say you must go over to Red Bull Radio to listen to the boys on the pre-match game. It was brilliant. The NYCFC game was great because I ended up just listening to that, and I was just listening, and then obviously, sadly, the game weren't going to go ahead, so I ended up going to bed because I'm really tired at the time. But no, so 2 wins here. Hopefully, when you do see us next time, we are very happy, and we'll be looking after the international break at the DC game to see whether we're going to get full 9 points out of the 3-game homestand, or we're going to be getting 4, 7, however many it may be. And yeah, there weren't much to talk about in terms of actual Red Bulls this week, apart from obviously Sean Nealis' contract, the NYCFC postponement, and obviously looking ahead to the Fire game. So we have got a new extract of our show, which is still under construction. We don't have a name for it yet, but it is the listener's question. So we put out on Twitter and on Facebook and near enough every single place you can find us is there anything you wanted to ask us about anything? Because we left it open-ended. I'm just hoping that these are all PG and acceptable in this hour, even though for us it is past the watershed at 9 o'clock. We will not be going into certain topics, but that could be available on other channels. So I will go over to my glamorous colleague over here and Luke Hume with some of the questions for the both of us, and hopefully somebody's going to be quite good. I'm quite looking forward to this, and this will be a new segment going forward for every maybe 1 to 2 weeks or whenever anyone has questions. So if you ever do have a question for us, either send it to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube comments, or anywhere else you might find us, or even at our email, rbnyuk@gmail.com. Just get in contact no matter what question it is. It could be Red Bull related, could be our football teams in the UK related, could be anything, or it could be what food we like, what drink we like. We don't care. But that's enough of the talking before the questions. Come on, Luke, let's get some of these questions.
Should we start with Twitter?
Might as well. Let's start with the platform everyone first knew us from.
So we got Joe. Apologize if I butchered my name. So apologies. I'm not good at pronunciations. Joe Pasilli, I think how you pronounce it.
Yeah, Big Joe.
I think it's a fair point in the season for a thorough appraisal of Struber. We'd love to hear your spin.
No, I think very good question from Joe. When it comes to Gerhard Struber, I think it's been a mixed season, a very mixed season. I think that's very fair to say. Been very bright sparks in the season where we thought, oh, this is very good. I think what comes to mind is probably the 2 wins over Orlando, especially. Yeah. But obviously there's been some down points as well where the performance has not been quite right, or there hasn't been a rotation there. But I think when you've moved from a European league, so obviously from an Austrian background into an English background, and now you come to America, it's very, very different. I think that's the first thing we learned as Europeans who then started following the MLS was how different it is to conventional European sports. Obviously, completely different schedule, and the size of your journeys are completely different. So I think that's one thing he's getting used to. And whereas in England, sometimes you can get away with having an actual starting 11 every single week because you mostly, like especially at top flight teams, championships, you fly or get a train to a game. So sometimes your maximum journey is going to be 3-4 hours for a game. Whereas you're looking at that for the MLS and you're looking triple, quadruple that in even like flying is crazy. So if I had to score him out of 10, I'd probably give him I don't want to be too critical, really. I'll still score him a 6.5. Obviously, a lot of room for improvement, especially in selection and rotation, I'd say. But if he can kind of rekindle the form of the players from the early parts of the season or the wins against Orlando, for example, it could be a successful end to the season. There's still a lot of football left to be played. So I think for the moment, I'm still happy with him. I think he's going to be a good leader for a project. However, I might change my stance on that come the end of the season if things don't plan out how they should be going and we're behind schedule.
Yeah, I agree with all that, to be honest. Going on to the next one. This is by Brian.
Oh, Brian.
Brian says, of all the players here on loan, who do you think is most worthy of bringing in permanently? For me, Cornell and Edwards would be my picks. Do you think we can compete with trophies with Fabio and Kamala as the forward pairing?
Yeah, but I think that's an excellent question, to be honest. And yeah, looking at the loan deals is quite an interesting one because I'll start with Fabio. Fabio seems to be a very, very good team player. He don't put himself first. He's one of them that I could see him being very liked in the changing room. So it's one of them that you do want them players around, but then I think it comes back to the point of if you're looking at our striking options for this season, obviously we have Patrick Klimala, we have Fabio, then on the bench striker Tom Barlow, and then Danny Royer is a part striking option / winger option. He can do both. So it's a bit unfair, I think, on Fabio and Klimala just because there's not much competition there in for their spaces. So they're guaranteed to start near enough, whatever. But I do like Fabio, but there's no beating around the bush. He needs to score more. That's simple. For a striker, he needs to score more. I think a successful season for him from this point onwards, if he reached in the area of 8 to 10 goals, would be brilliant and probably end up giving him the chance of signing, I would have thought. Tom Edwards, putting my bias views aside from being an Englishman with an Englishman out there, I think he's been brilliant. Has been a very good aspect of the team, and especially with the uncertainty of Cole Duncan's future, there could be a clear route into the first 11 for him and a key fixture, which could become key at the end of the year. Obviously, it has to be a mutual agreement. I don't know if there is a part in the contract of him with Stoke City that with a purchase, but obviously, everyone's got to agree at the end of the day. You've got Gerhard Struber and the management have got to want to keep the player. The player's got to want to stay in New York, and Stoke City's team don't want to keep him and might want to sell him or potentially another loan. But no, I 100% agree. I'd like to see Tom Edwards turn permanently at the end of the year, especially if Cole Duncan does go. He can be the first choice fixture at right back and maybe bring a younger guy to be his understudy. Coronel, 100%. I really like Coronel. I think he's been an asset to the team, and without even thinking about it, I would bring him in next season as number one again. Don't know what you think, Luke, about the three options.
Yeah, I think Coronel will be in the season. I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion, to be honest. I think this loan was kind of like a tester. He's done quite well. I think he will be in next season. I'm not sure about Fabio at the moment. He doesn't seem a Steelers type of player. He's not scoring enough goals. He's not really assisting a lot either for striking, not scoring. So I'm not sure he'll be in this year. I think he needs to have a really good end of the season to be hitting it for sure next year. Edwards, if he wants to join, the club needs to snap his hands off, basically. Like, I think was Stoke be willing to negotiate with that? That's another question. He's on a contract. He's got another 2 years in the contract, or maybe a year. He's not going to be on a free. The club will have to pay a transfer fee for him. We'll see. We'll see if we get a move, won't we? Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Oh no, I'd love to see Tom Edwards be a full-fledged RBNY player, and I will get him on my jersey next year. But I think also another loan player that everyone's forgetting now is a certain Caden Clark, who is officially a loan player.
Yes, yeah.
And obviously we can go in the debate about everything to do with Rasenborspor, Leipzig, Salzburg, and New York, and the other teams. But I have a feeling that we might be seeing Caden for another season. Injuries obviously haven't helped his progression as a player during this campaign, and I think Leipzig is seeing that, but he's still a very, very young player. But I in a way, I'd love to see him in the Leipzig setup getting minutes, but I just think he might be a bit too early for him. And the last thing we want is him to be rushed into a major top 5 league in Europe and to fall by the wayside and the career goes down the pan. I think I could probably compare it, and I think some people might not agree with me. Some people might do. Matt Miazga, for example, who did sign for Chelsea when he was highly touted, and obviously loan spell after loan spell after loan spell. And it's got to a point where in his career now, where he's 26 years old, I think he is, and he's not really achieved much because he's gone on loan. I think the first team he went on loan from Chelsea was Vitesse Arnhem, where he did spend 2 years, but now he's at Alaves on loan. So it's his 5th loan spell since he's departed New York Red Bulls. And I think, could he have maybe stayed another season at Red Bulls? Probably. But at the end of the day, you're not going to turn down Chelsea. So
No.
With Caden, I think Leipzig are a good club with their loan system. That they will see if a player's ready or not. If he's not ready, they'll loan him out. And hopefully, if he does want to come back, I would welcome him with open arms back to a Red Bull arena from the other Red Bull arena. That's what I have to say on that one. To Brian.
Yeah. I think it's more and more likely he'll be back here next season at the moment. We're moving on to Facebook now, discussion group. So we'll get started with some football ones before we move on to some other ones.
Lovely.
We'll start with Keith, Brian.
Oh, super Keith Brown. If you are listening, Keith, love you, Keith.
We've got 3 questions. So I'll just do one at a time.
Yep.
Does Caden Clark start another season at Red Bull? And you're not forget to talk about that, Keith. So there's your answer.
Yeah. I think we will be seeing him next season at Red Bull Arena. Yep.
Why a year was so unfit? That's a great question. He can't seem to stay fit. He's not looking like we signed him to DP last year. He's not. I know he's not a DP anymore. He's on the under 22 initiative, but he's not exactly looking.
No, it's another one. I don't know if there's something else playing there. I don't know if there's a niggling injury or something like that, or he's just not settled in America. Like we've seen it multiple times in every country in the world that a player goes to a country and thinks it's going to be brilliant and just doesn't settle.
Yeah,
he's definitely not settled within the first team yet. Maybe that could be part of the reason that he's not had a clear run of games, and sometimes people need a run of games to really hit the ground. But it's not worked at the moment. Obviously, he's still quite a young player and had quite a lot of promise when he did leave Europe to come over to New York. So I wouldn't say I'm not concerned at the moment in terms of his actual performances. There could be something what we don't know at the moment, but I hope to see him more involved and hopefully see him more impactful on the game.
Yeah, I hope so. So then we're going to the final one from Keith was, so if we don't make the playoffs of the season, should Stuber get fired?
That's a great question, Keith. From a Red Bull fan's perspective, we should be making the playoffs. We've earned the right to. We've been very lucky in the right that we've had great teams down the years that have always made the playoffs. But I think it's a bit of a different period in like the history of the franchise, obviously at Red Bulls at the moment, but also MetroStars, that it's a very beginning of a project. Like there's a lot of very young players, and this team is not. This team is not created for success this season, even though we all want it this season. This team is created for success from next year or even the year after that. So I don't think Struber would be fired if we didn't make the playoffs this year. I think the actual goal would be playoffs at the end of next season, so the 2022 season. I think that would be the more viable option where these players have more experience. A few more players have come in as well, and maybe a few more, the squad being a bit stronger. So I think he'll be judged more on next year's output rather than this year. So I think even unless it's an absolute catastrophic end to the season and we just can't win a game to save our lives, but I do think we'll be seeing Gerhard Struber in the technical dugout this time come next season.
I agree. I don't think he'll be sacked. Next one from Scott Ruddy. Position of Nats, that's the US men's national team. I think that left back. Don't Tolkien deserve a call up. Is he better than Sam Vines?
Good question again. With the US men's national team, I think even looking at Sam Vines, who is a very good player, but you can't when you look at John Tolkien, he's proven himself so much more and more and more. And obviously Sam Vines, who now plays for Royal Antwerp in Belgium, has moved to European football. And I think that's always a green marker on your account when you're a US men's national team player, that if you're playing in Europe, you're seen as a bit more attractive. But obviously at the beginning of this season, US men's national team probably didn't even really know much about John Tolkien. But now he's definitely on the radar. And I think maybe not obviously starting matches. I think maybe, but he's definitely got to start getting in the training camps at least, because he's a talent, could play multiple positions. And I think just like Sam Vines, it won't be too long before Europe's come knocking for him and he gets a move. And I think within the next year, he will be getting his first US men's national team cap.
Yeah, I agree. So the next one from Cliff. He said, what will it take for Red Bull to sign big name players again? Or would it have to be in the ownership? Is there room for big name players in a high press system? I'll go first on this. It's not happening. The Red Bull group are not. The days are gone for this franchise now. The days on Henri or Cahill's or Marquez's, your Juan Pablo and Gal, it's not happening. But they're committed to this high press, breeding youngsters. Whether you agree or not, that's what they want to do. So I think in response to your question, really, would have to be completely in the ownership of its franchise before they even considered the game.
Yeah, I think just touching on that, and I think obviously with this new high tempo proposition, the attackers are becoming younger / a certain style, but I wouldn't be too opposed to seeing maybe a big name at centre half, for example, because there's some experienced players out there who could definitely do a job. I think obviously there's one that comes to my mind, David Luiz, for example, who at the moment still hasn't got a club, which I was quite surprised about, because even though people say he's not the best of players, what I've seen of him at Arsenal is a model professional, and still can do a very good job no matter what it is. Obviously, maybe he doesn't want to move to the MLS, for example, but some of that could help, especially sometimes you need these older pros to come in. Yeah. Look at Thierry Henry, for example, and with Bradley Wright Phillips. Thierry Henry was one of the main reasons why Bradley Wright Phillips managed to break out how he did, and Bradley's admitted it on multiple occasions. When you learn from a professional who's done it all aspects of the game, sometimes there's nothing better, because, all right, a coach is great because they can tell you things here and there, but when it comes to a professional who's played hundreds of games at the top level, they can give you these little insights and make them so much better. So I'd say it's very unlikely that we'll see a big name DP come in, but I wouldn't be opposed to maybe a centre half or maybe a centre midfielder. But then again, it won't be a 37, 38-year-old who's going there for a payday. It would probably be a 24 to 25-year-old, or maybe 26, 27 at a push, who's still top level and maybe just falling out of order. I think I would say, and this is probably a bit biased for me being English and an Arsenal fan, but there's a certain player who is out of contract at the moment. His name's Jack Wilshere. And I was listening to a fascinating. I've listened to a fascinating article by The Athletic, and if anyone hasn't seen this interview, it's over on their YouTube channel, and he just admits about, obviously he's now a free agent, he has no offers on the table, he's had no injuries since last January. No one can tell me that he wouldn't do a job in that midfield. No one can tell me he wouldn't do a job in that midfield. Obviously, the stigma attached with his injuries, but it would be an absolute treat. I think an MLS team would be stupid not to pick him up, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see whoever picks him up do very well in the playoffs this year.
Okay, it's a bold claim. Go with it. Right. Most of it's really a question, but we go with it anyway. This is from Julian Badsouth. He says, when is Wallen taking over from Suba? I think the plan after that is Wallen doesn't want the top job. He's quite happy doing that with two, developing these young players. That's where he wants to be. That's where he wants to stay. So it could let him do that, really.
Yeah, no, I think obviously people giving Struber a bit of stick at the moment and coming under pressure, but I'm giving him time. I'm going to give him another 18 months to the end of next season, and then I'll discuss whether he should be remaining the manager of New York Red Bulls or someone else should be coming in.
Yeah. We've got a final question, not a Red Bull one, but it had to go in, from James Sheridan, and it's about the British cuisine.
Oh, lovely.
Okay, so what's the deal with beans and toast?
What can I say? It's just a
top
delicacy,
quality.
I'd say. Especially when you add the other ingredients of a fry up in there. It's exceptional.
Beans
And
and toast is a quality.
yeah, I don't know whether to take offence there about beans on toast. Maybe it's just not a thing that someone likes. But
If it is not a thing in America, we need to make that a thing.
yeah, I personally am a massive fan. I think I've seen Victor Wanyama, someone gave him a thing of spaghetti at one of the Montreal games. I think I might go out to Red Bull Arena and start giving out Heinz baked beans to all the fans so they can experience it.
We need to open a restaurant in Times Square called Beans on Toast.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah. Big fan. I don't think I can say anything else. Great. I think it goes down as a great breakfast or either sometimes at lunch and sometimes at dinner. Any time of the day you can have that. So, and I cannot say that I haven't had that before a Red Bulls game on a few occasions just to tide me over.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm always very happy to do that. Have a beans and toast. That wraps up the questions.
So yeah, that was the first edition of Listeners' Questions, and it's going to be an exciting thing going forward, and it's going to be a new aspect of the show where you can just ask us anything, whether you want to know something about us personally, our interest within the UK, our interest in any other sports, or even something to do with the Red Bulls. So I thank everyone who's submitted questions this week, and we will be putting out a post on our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram for questions when we're leading into the next segment of that on a podcast. But that brings us to the end of episode 15 of the RBNY UK podcast in partnership with Big Apple Sports Network. And we'd just like to say thank you once again to every single person who's listening to us and shows us support. It means more than you ever will know. And we might be stuck on the British Isles at the moment, but our heart and our soul is at RBA, especially for this Saturday's game against Chicago Fire. And in true fashion of the RBNY UK podcast, the simple words from me and Luke: come on, you Red Bulls. We'll see you next time.
Let's go.